Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Math with Mrs. Wensley. Today we are starting section 7.3. Please bear with me, I'm still fighting off my cold here, but I'm going to try to speak clearly. Excuse me. So the first thing I want you to do is put your name on the top. That's what we always do first. That's what I want you to do first. Put your name on the top. Some of you still have not done this. Take the time to do it. I found notes packets around my classroom and you didn't put your name on it, so I'm not sure if you still have it because I didn't know whose it was. It's either in the no name tray or maybe somebody else claimed it who chose not to do their notes. All right, today is 3/27/18. And then put your block number up there. You can just put Mrs. Marks, Mrs. Wensley, Mrs. Gino, or 1, 2, and 3, whichever you prefer. Today we are going to focus on constructing triangles with the given angle measure and constructing triangles with given side lengths. Alright, so first we're going to fill in the blank for our definition. Our new word is congruent sides. Congruent sides, excuse me, are when we have two sides of the same length. Same length. If we have congruent angles, it's when we have two angles of the same measure. So if we had a 45, 45, 90 triangle, we would have two congruent angles because they're both 45 degrees. When triangles are classified, there are sometimes little marks on the corners or the sides. The arcs in the corners, so those little rounded shapes, those arcs that go kind of like a C around the corners, indicate congruent angles. When there are little tick marks on the side, those little lines that go through the sides, this indicates congruent sides. We're going to look at some that have these. All right. Now, there are multiple ways to classify these triangles. First ones we're going to look at are based on the angle: acute, obtuse, right, and equiangular. The first one, there are three angles. We can tell that they are all less than 90 degrees. So they are all, I bet you can guess this word, they're all acute. When they're all acute, this is known as an acute triangle. So if all the angles are less than 90, remember they still have to equal 180 degrees, but if the angles are less than 90, this is an acute triangle. If one angle is greater than 90 degrees, it is obtuse. So we have one obtuse angle here. This one right here is more than 90 degrees. So this is an obtuse triangle. This one right here, it has one right angle marked by the little red box. Now, yours is not colored. So what I would like you to do, the reason why you should have a highlighter as well as your writing utensil, take your highlighter, whatever color it is, and just mark that corner right there. That corner is what indicates your right angle. This is known as a right triangle. Now lastly, looking right here, see these little arcs? These are all little arcs. I want you to mark those. These little arcs, they indicate that those are all the same angle. They are all the same angle. I'm going to pull out a different color highlighter here because the yellow is not showing up very well. Here we go. You're going to keep it inside the triangle. I did that just so you can see what I'm marking here. All three of these angles are congruent because they're marked by those little arcs, like our C's. So we classify this as an equiangular. Think about equal, angular, angles. Equal, angular, sorry, equiangular, equal angles. So it's a triangle with equal angles, so it's equiangular. All right, when you're ready to, you may flip the page. Now we're at the top of our second page. We're looking at triangle labeled E. This is now the next section where we are looking at labeling them based on our sides, based on the side length. So we have the side lengths here, and if there are no congruent sides, notice none of them are marked by those little tick marks. So there are no congruent sides. Therefore, it is a scalene triangle. This is what we call a scalene triangle. No congruent sides, it's a scalene. Now right here we're going to look at triangle F. Triangle F, we see these two tick marks on it. That indicates that these two sides are the same, or those two sides are congruent. So there are at least two congruent sides. Therefore, it is an isosceles. Isosceles triangle. Please mark those two tick marks so that you can clearly see them. Now we're going to look at triangle G. Triangle G we see has 1, 2, 3 tick marks. So therefore, it has 3 tick marks. All 3 of the sides are exactly the same length. So there are 3 congruent sides. Therefore, it is an equilateral. Equilateral triangle. Once again, the equa means equal. Lateral, think of your line. Equal length on these sides, equilateral. We're going to move on to looking at some examples to practice classifying them. So I'm looking at example A. I see that this angle is 115 degrees. I see that this angle is 25 degrees. And this one is 40 degrees. So now that we have our degrees, we're going to think about what kind of triangle this is based on what you see. This triangle has one obtuse. This is more than 90 degrees, less than 180 degrees. This is one obtuse angle and no congruent sides. There are no tick marks here. You can measure it if you'd like, but none of these sides are the same. It would have a tick mark to tell us that they're the same. So we have no congruent sides. Therefore, this is an obtuse scalene triangle. It's an obtuse scalene. So based off of the angles, we get obtuse. Based off of the side lengths, we get scalene. So it's an obtuse scalene triangle. Now we're going to look at example B. Now with B, we see here that we have two sides that are labeled with the arcs. Sorry, two angles labeled with the arcs and two sides labeled with the ticks. Now, this is pretty exciting. All right, so this triangle has all acute angles. See, none are obtuse. We can see that none go over that 90-degree mark. We can also see that none are marked as 90 degrees. Therefore, they are all acute, because they're all smaller than 90 degrees. We also see that it has two congruent. They're marked by these tick marks. So two congruent sides. So we can say that this is an acute isosceles triangle. Acute isosceles. Acute because all of the angles are smaller. Excuse me. All of the angles are smaller than 90 degrees. Isosceles because there are at least two congruent sides. All right. Now I would like you to try these two on your own. Try to classify those on your own. This one right here, you have a 45 and a 45 and a 90. In example 2, we don't have any actual angle measures. We just have all the tick marks and the arcs. So please pause your video and try these two on your own. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If we start by looking at number 1, number 1 has a 45, a 45, and a 90-degree angle. Acute, acute, right. This right angle tells me that this is a right triangle. Anytime there's a right angle, it's a right triangle. So it is a right triangle, but based on the sides, these sides here, we have two sides that are the same length. So when we have two sides that are the same length, it's an isosceles. So we have a right isosceles triangle. Now looking at example 2. Example 2, we have the arcs in the corners, and we also have little tick marks on all three sides. So because all of the angles are the same, it's an equiangular. Because all of the sides are the same, it's an equilateral. So we have an equiangular equilateral triangle. If you're still not sure how I got those, please pause the video now, go back over it, look at your notes, and remind yourself what classifies each of these triangles. as equiangular, equilateral, right, or isosceles, and why they're called that. When you are ready, continue the video and move on to the next page. At the top of this next page, you'll see this chart right here. This is a chart that can help you try to figure out how to classify these angles. So an acute angle that is scalene will have all acute angles and no sides that are the same length. A scalene right, none of these sides are the same length, and it has a right angle in the corner. One of the angles are right angle. It doesn't have to be this way. It could have been facing the other way, and it still would have been the same thing. An obtuse scalene triangle, excuse me again, has an obtuse angle right here, and no sides that are the same length. No congruent sides. An isosceles, an acute isosceles triangle, two sides that are the same length. If you can't see them very well or they didn't show up very well on your copy, please just draw over them like I did, either with your highlighter or your pencil. So an acute isosceles, all of these angles are less than 90 degrees, and these two sides are the same length. A right isosceles, you have a box in the corner signifying that is a right triangle, and two sides that are the same length. In obtuse isosceles, you have an angle right here. This angle is more than 90 degrees, and two sides that are the same length. Now you can have an acute equilateral triangle where all of the angles are smaller than 90 and all the sides are the same length. And then as we saw in the last one, you can have an equilateral, equiangular triangle where all the sides and all the angles are the same length in measure. But you cannot have a right equilateral or an obtuse equilateral. Those are not possible. See right here, these are not possible. You cannot have